and welcome to Thrash Life, Episode 6. As you can tell, we're not in the studio this week, enjoying the holidays, taking some time off. But we do have an interview. Our guest is Nina Amaya, very fluent in the ways of the Renaissance Festival and Fairy Festival scenes, as well as being able to do world music, percussion, belly dance, all sorts of things. I think her perspectives on music are quite different than our other guests, and the conversation was very enlightening. So, let's go on, get right into it. Our interview with Nina Amaya. To start, could you introduce yourself and tell us your pronouns?
Yeah, we're doing that now?
Sure.
All right. I go by Nina Amaya, and I am a she, her, they's fine. My legal name's Nina Rutledge, but I don't even really go by that anymore. People write checks to Nina Amaya. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
And I took that name as a dancer. I used to be a professional ballet dancer.
Awesome.
And that's actually how I started being a musician.
Cool. How would you describe the music that you play?
Um, I make a lot of thumping noises. I play percussion in Brinjal, and it's mostly Middle Eastern music, which includes, if you're not familiar with it, a lot of improvisations. So
Okay.
there's some back and forth between Middle Eastern music and jazz.
Oh, cool. Mostly acoustic stuff. No amplifiers or anything like that.
No, you're not even going to hear an oud, for instance, a stringed instrument that's similar, the ancestor of the lute, um, unless you have amplification. So, yeah, we have flute players. So we definitely do. I mean, in my living room for practice, we don't usually amplify, except maybe the guitar player will put his amp on. But uh, yeah, no, it's not like rock and roll loud amplified, but
You try to get a mix in there, make sure
yeah.
everybody's heard. Okay. And where do you play music usually? What kind of clubs and
We do a lot of
things like that?
festivals.
Festivals. Okay.
So we're at the Maryland Ren Fair sometimes. We've done the PA Ren Fair. Um, we do the fairy festivals. We like costuming, so we have played as witches and warlocks. Have played at pirate festivals, and since the music is from a lot of countries and is sort of exotic and world music, we get to pretend we're from all over the place.
Right.
So there's a large fantasy. Uh, I mean, the fairies are my favorite because you cannot culturally appropriate from a fairy.
Right. Right.
So we do a lot of fairy festivals. But we have played like Joe Squared and a couple places like that. I wouldn't mind. We play sometimes like at an Indian restaurant and have belly dancers.
Like the New Deal Cafe or
We've played the
things
New
like.
Deal, yeah,
Okay.
a few times. I'd love to be there again. I hear they're looking for a music scheduler.
Oh.
Yep.
Well, if you're listening to this now and you know how to schedule music, New Deal is looking for somebody to do that.
And they want you to have experience.
Oh, okay. Um, so let's start off with the beginning, with your earliest musical influences when you were growing up and you didn't know what music quite was yet, and suddenly something just smacked you in the face and said, "Wow, this is music. This is a thing. This is not just a rock or a blade of grass. This music is actually something that's really interesting to me." What was that experience like? Was it a specific band or anything like that?
No. My mother learned to play the guitar in 7 days from the back of a magazine ad. And
Whoa.
she played music and sang to us all the time. So there was always music.
Okay.
Um, she sang a lot of folk songs, was real into, Woody Guthrie and Arlo. Well, not Arlo yet when I was really little, but Woody Guthrie and Pete Seeger and those kind of influences, and had a lot of Leadbetters. And she also loved the Fugs,
Hmm.
which I don't know if you're familiar with the Fugs.
A little
But
bit, not too much.
so I grew up with bluegrass, and then I'm the youngest. I was born in 1963, so my sisters, who were 10 years older than me, were fully going through the late 60s as teenagers.
Okay.
So, and my brother was 4 years older than me. So there was a lot of Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention in my house, and there was,
Awesome.
yeah, there was music was just always there. And I actually am rhythm challenged, dance lexic, even though I was a professional dancer. I'm, I, I, I think I really do have some kind of learning disability, which, if you're familiar with Stephen King, the writer, he's dyslexic.
Hmm.
It doesn't mean you can't do it. It means it's harder for you to get there.
Hmm.
And you might be coming from a slightly different place, and you might be really good because you're coming from a slightly different place.
Right.
I was always dancing to the beat of a different drummer.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know? There's a move in belly dance called the three-quarter shimmy. And I remember one time a dance teacher looking at me, and she just like peers at my hips. She goes, Nina, I think you're doing a 5/8 shimmy. I'm not sure what you're doing, which was terribly embarrassing. Um, but yeah, when I was a kid, I couldn't drum or clap along.
Okay.
I, I couldn't, like, I would just be off beat all the time. But sometimes what is most challenging is the most fun, or the most, I like a challenge.
Right.
So now I'm a percussionist in my band.
Right.
And my husband, I didn't want to tell you when I was asking him if he wanted to come. I said, I almost wrote, in fact, I did write, and then I erased it. My husband's going to laugh at the idea of me being a musician. And then I was like, I'm not going to say that. He might not laugh. And so then I told him what I was doing, and he started laughing. I was like, well, why don't you come? But he's busy building stilts in the basement right now.
Oh, well, that's a noble pursuit,
Yes.
stilts and all
Yeah,
that.
he's got a good. But I was like, well, he said musicianship and musician life. I definitely have a musician's life. He
Oh,
was like, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, you got that.
Yeah, so I mean, what I really like to discuss on here is just the journey and everything. It doesn't have to be that you are the the best musician or you are always playing music, but just last week we had a person on who doesn't have 10 Facebook pages for all the bands that they're in and a long storied history. And then we have some other people, I believe, John DeCampos in episode 3 has a very long history despite only being in his 30s. He's
Mm-hmm.
done over 10 projects and continues to juggle 5 things at once.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I juggle many, many things. I have 4 or 5 sons to take. Yeah, the last one turned 18, and then this duck accidentally got born at my house and follows me in the bathroom like a little kid. I'm like, wait, I'm over this, right? Anyway, we have 2 bands actually. You made me think of that. We just recently started a stilt band,
oh, okay.
so that is called the Tipsy Kings.
Nice.
And it's 4 of us, and my friend Onso O'Leary sings torch songs. Unfortunately, she lives down in Richmond. The rest of us are up here, so I think that happens a lot in bands where it's like when we can get together.
Yes, yeah.
Because sometimes the music, the love of a certain thing, doesn't mean you're geographically close to each other.
Oh, especially
And,
not now. Yeah.
Do you know Christopher Beljika?
I am
He's
not
only
familiar with him.
27. But he plays a lot of the Django jazz. He plays
Okay.
Hot Club of Baltimore, and he's probably got 5 bands. I just saw him in his klezmer band. I forget what it was called, down at Union Brewery, and he just joined Brinjal, and he's in
Awesome.
the stilt band also. So yeah, and then there's my husband Jeff Feringer, who I met at a fairy festival in his giant. We're giants when we're at the fairy festivals a lot because we're both stilt. Well, I learned to stilt walk so I could see eye to eye with him. And people were like, "When did you take this up?" I was like, "I was 51 when I learned to stilt walk. I fell in love with him." I was like,
Nice.
"Why did you start stilt walking?" I fell in love with him. So, yeah, he invented the slapophone,
I
which
saw a picture
is
of that.
like the Blue
Yeah.
Men bought one, and I don't know. There's a few of them. He's neither of us are very tidy, and the basement is a wreck. But he's cleaning it up enough to make stilts again, and I hope he starts making them again. And then he's got an overblat that he plays in Brinjal.
Okay.
And an overblat is a sliding tube with a membrane. It does do the trombone thing, but it also, most of the sound that he gets, he's by him pressing his thumb on the membrane,
Okay.
and that he can change the tone that way. And he blows into it, and it looks like a didgeridoo and sounds a little bit like a didgeridoo, but it's definitely not a didgeridoo.
Neat.
Yeah, so I think Brinjal's the only band with one of those.
Yeah, when I
Going.
saw the slapophone, I was like, might have to figure out a way to get this in here for some content in the future because this thing
Yeah,
looks very interesting.
yeah. The overblat is very, very visual. That's one reason
Okay.
I really like having him. I mean, of course, I like having him in the band. But,
So, what was it? You said you were rhythmically challenged, and you listened to a lot of stuff in your youth. Did you pick up any particular instrument first? Was there something that?
no, my brother tried to teach me to play the guitar, but am I allowed to cuss on your?
Yeah, absolutely.
So he'd be like, I was like 12. My fingers weren't big enough for what he was like this, you little bitch. And I was like, nah, I don't think I want to learn this anymore.
Jeez, jeez.
So, banging on things is nice. Well, as a belly dancer, just in regular classes, you start learning the finger symbols.
Yeah.
And the finger symbols, your rhythm better be good because those things are loud.
Mm-hmm.
And I would play very softly at first, but it's pretty hard to play them softly. So I over the years, it took me years, and then I learned to play the rick, which is the Arabic tambourine. And I hate calling it a tambourine because when I think of a tambourine, I think of shaking it and hitting your ass with it.
Right, right.
But a rick sometimes is the lead instrument in an Arabic ensemble.
Oh, okay.
So, and I'm really not. I'm good at playing it in the band, as in I make good noise to make music with the band, but there are people who play the rick who are amazing what they can do. Kareem Nagy is a real influence. I used to go to music and dance camps.
Okay.
So I would go to like Folk Tours Music and Dance Camp had a lot of Turkish teachers. And the big davul, which some people call a tapan, it's a big drum here.
Okay.
And yeah, I think when it's a tapan, they usually play it sort of on its side, but as a davul, it's usually straight up and down, and it's like there's a lot of interaction in belly dance music and Middle Eastern music. When there are dancers, there's a lot of interaction between the dancer um, and the musicians, and like the taksim, the instrumental break where the improvisation will happen. If you're good musicians and good dancers, you're absolutely playing that together. You're illustrating and it's improv. You don't know the song as the song's never been played before.
Right.
So you have to feel where he or she is going and respond to it. And if the musician is a good musician in a dancer's view,
Right.
that musician will also, she or he will be looking at the dancer and playing to what the dancer's doing. So that's a really nice interchange. And I remember one time when I started learning the dumbek, the darbuka,
Okay.
the Middle Eastern drumming, because most dancers try and learn a little bit of that because the rhythms are very important
Yes.
to the dancers. And I remember one time at a hafla, at a little, like a performance, a hafla, it means party, but here in the United States, it's usually a performance where a lot of different dancers are dancing, mostly for other dancers.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a kind of a community jam.
Yeah.
And I remember drumming. I can't remember if I was on the rick or the drum, but I realized the dancer was dancing to me. And it almost threw me off because, again, I come from a place where music was hard for me. So when I realized that it was me that she had picked out to articulate with her hips, it was an exciting moment. It was the first time I felt like, the doctor on this end of the needle.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It was great. It was great. So that was one of those aha moments, like, whoa, I'm actually the musician here.
Right.
Here's because as a dancer, that means you're a musician if someone's dancing to you.
Yeah, it's like you're locked in on each other, paying attention finally, and in the groove.
Yeah, it was nice.
So from those early influences, and just picking up
those different types of percussion things to current day, would you say a lot has changed? Is it easier for you now in a band dynamic than it was when you were first starting out? And are you composing more, or are you taking the lead more, or stepping back, or anything like
Hmm.
that?
It's a good question. I've certainly grown, more comfortable and more confident as time goes on. And I tend to I tend to lose myself in the music.
Hmm.
There's an Arabic term, tarab, and it's that state of when you are one with the music and you enter a different state. I think most musicians know that state, whether there's a word for it in their
Yeah.
language or not. Um, and it's I think I used to sort of enter it as a dancer, and now I can enter it as a musician. Um, but I run the bands because that's just my natural personality, is being very bossy,
Hmm.
being very organized. And so sometimes in practice, I'm thinking about the other seven things
Right.
that I need to be thinking about. And and then sometimes in performance, because I play, for me, when I play the Rick, which is what I'm usually playing, um, it's decorative. I'm not the one keeping the steady beat. There's a drummer keeping the beat, and I get to play.
Hmm.
And that is really fun. And I am a lot better at that now for sure. But I also know that I'm not necessary. So I can stop doing that decoration and wander off and go talk to somebody. So I don't think my friend Melissa, she plays in a band called Ishtar. Well, she runs Ishtar up in Pittsburgh, and it's a Middle Eastern music. She's an influence for a lot of Americans who are playing Middle Eastern music, because she looked at it and she said, "I'm going to write this down."
Right.
So she got sheet music out to all of us, and she would run workshops of how to play Middle Eastern music. What is a maqam?
Hmm.
It's a different set of notes than the sets of notes that we use.
Okay.
Um, and I don't know if she's ever actually said it out loud, but the fact that I wander off sometimes in the middle of a song is, I think, one reason why she doesn't usually pick me as her main Rick player. But I just love life, and music is a part of life, and that's why I play music, because it's a joyful noise to make with your friends.
Yeah.
And as a dancer, I would always dance to live music before I would dance to recorded music, because you're up there with your friends,
Hmm.
In a performance, some dancers are afraid of dancing with live music because they've practiced to their music and it's going to sound exactly like it did in their living room when
Right.
they go out on stage.
Yes. Yeah.
But to me, that's not what it's about. It's about the dance. Dancing is a response to the moment.
Hmm.
And so if you know what music sounds like, then whatever the band plays, that's what you dance to. Um,
It sounds
so
like you've gotten a lot more comfortable as time has gone on. I mean, comfortable enough to get up and walk away and talk to people in the middle of
yeah,
a
yeah.
performance.
Ren Fair's been really good for that, because Ren Fair becomes like a family. Like, we've never played the whole season. My band has never wanted to. Now we're kind of thinking we could do that. Plus, the band has grown
Hmm.
so that there might be a dozen of us and only 5 or 6 of us are needed to play a show. So if we did have the whole season, everybody doesn't commit there every Saturday and Sunday
Ah, okay.
for whatever it is, 8 weeks, 11 weeks, something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. Um, so there's enough people that want to play with us. And then there's people who want to play with us. Tobias Hurwitz is a guitar teacher and performer. He plays like for the Ravens at halftime, and
Oh.
he's fabulous. When we went to high school together,
Hmm.
and he was like, "You play Ren Fair? I don't play Ren Fair." I was like, "Okay, come play Ren Fair." So we already have a guitarist. I'll play bass ukulele. I'm like, "Great! I have one. Here's mine. He said, okay, let me take this home. And then he came and played bass ukulele with us because it looks like a little guitar.
Yeah.
I asked at a Ren Fair. um, anyway, yeah, so sometimes people just will jump on with us, and I just love to collaborate like that. I have to watch it, though, because I'm the percussionist. And when the other melody players, when I say, hey, why don't you come play with us right now on stage? Because I know you're a good musician, and he doesn't know any of our songs. I'm like, no, don't do that. Like, he's playing like in a different key, like, or I don't even have music language.
Right.
I don't even know what I'm talking about. But I live the musician life. I'm allowed to be here.
That's
Actually, there's a good story too how the band got started. As a dancer, I was asked by a music festival to come teach belly dance workshops, and I would also be performing on the stage. And could I bring a live band with me?
oh.
I was like, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
So that's how the band started.
Awesome. That's pretty lucky. I mean, I guess maybe it's
Yeah, it was like $1,000, $1,200 gig.
oh
So I
wow.
was going to start a band so I could do that.
Well, that
That's
seems like
really
a little
lucky.
bit. That seems a little bit more of an incentive also to grab some people in here. Hey, we're playing for money. Come on, come
Right.
on. Do you have any extravagant or lofty musical goals that you would like to achieve?
What a wonderful question. I think I'll invent some right now. Lofty goals. I really just want to keep playing music with my friends and getting paid for it. It's nice.
That these days could be seen as a lofty goal.
I really like what we're doing now, and what we're doing now is always changing. Um,
Do you see
but
it ever getting
I
huge?
do want to learn to do that bass ukulele myself. Tobias actually even made me a little short. He says, I know almost everything's in D and blah, 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 blah. Here, let me just, and I videoed him, and it's right here on my phone.
Nice.
Have I practiced? No.
Do you ever think about Brinjal or anything getting big, doing national touring or
No.
anything like that?
No. I would love to do the that Fairy Worlds event we were talking about before. I would love to do a couple of things on the West Coast. Mostly, mostly my band doesn't want to travel a whole lot, so
Mhm.
I get to travel more as a stilt walker, which is
Ah,
my main income.
okay.
When you have a band, you have to split the money with those 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 people.
Yeah, yeah.
And when you're a stilt walker, it's a much more niche thing. And so, that's the music is for the joy and the fun, and doesn't much pay the bills. If Yeah, I love so many things that touring would take me away from my chickens. Um, you know, we're doing a Ren Fest in Florida for 6 weeks, or I guess it's 5 weekends, but we'll be there for 6 weeks because we got to get there and we got to get back and everything. But we're doing it as stilt walkers, my husband and I,
Okay.
and so I've got my 18-year-old is still at home and he's going to take care of the chickens. Um,
Nice.
but yeah, I love doing things in other countries. I love doing, I love teaching dance workshops or doing a band gig in another state. It's always fun to be the people from out of town.
Yes, yes,
People
absolutely.
just take it so much more seriously than they do in
Yeah,
your own
yeah.
town.
You
Like,
go
ooh.
you're 20 minutes down the street and people are like, you can come here
Well,
anytime.
my next door neighbor loves it when we play outside. So we all practice at my house, and during COVID, of course, for as long as we could in last winter, we practiced out on the patio. This has been a really hard time
Yeah.
for so many people in so many ways. Um, but because my husband and I are full-time gig people,
Hmm.
whether it's music or dance or the stilt walking, we got unemployment, and that was amazing. um, it was amazing to be, I guess, because so much of the country are gig workers now. Because the government doesn't really care that much about us individual human beings down here. I mean,
Yeah.
some people do,
Hmm.
but as an entity, the government doesn't really care that much. But so many people gig working, they care about keeping the country going. And the country, with that many people out of work, we, you know, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like politicians care more about the image of the United States. And if people were just starving in the street all over, that doesn't look good.
Yeah, yeah. But as long as it's swept out of the view of the common person and looks all
Right.
right on paper,
Right.
then it's all
Right.
good.
And it doesn't start stinking up the houses of the wealthy. Anyway, we're not talking politics here.
Well, talking about goals, do you have any short-term goals or things that are right around the corner that you're working on that you're looking to
I
get
thought
accomplished?
I thought we might record again this time, right before we. Where is that camera anyway? I'm trying to look at the camera.
We got a camera here and a camera
Hello,
here.
camera.
And they'll
Oh,
light up
there they
blue.
are. These
Yeah.
little things. They're just tiny these
Yeah,
days. They're
they
just
are
little bitty
tiny.
things. I used to have a camcorder back in the days where you'd carry it on your shoulder, and like there was this box that
Yeah.
slung over your shoulder, and then you had this giant camera. um, the because I thought we might record this winter, and turns out everybody's actually just ready to chill for a while.
Mhm.
And then I'm going away, like I said, for January and a little bit of February. But come March, we'll be marching in the St. Patrick's Day parade, and then April 9th is my birthday and the Baltimore Faerie Faire. And we had it virtually this last time. We were going to have a smaller version of the Faerie Faire in my backyard, which is large. But then we came down with COVID
Oh,
and decided not to do that. So
yeah.
we were well by the time of the fair, but it just, these things are crushing.
Right.
My son was in the ICU with heart inflammation. Some kids just get it a weird way. They don't get it like other people. They get like multi-system inflammation and stuff.
Hmm.
So we had it virtually last year, and this year we're going to be back at the Church of the Guardian Angel in Remington.
Okay.
So it's right at 27th and Huntington, I'd say. And the festival is probably just a few hundred people. I'm requiring vaccinations. There's a ball the night before, the Spring Fairy Ball, where Brinjal will play. The Clipper City Crew Band will play, which is a 24-piece brass band.
Wow. Okay.
And the fairies will dance. And we have others. When I talk about the fae, that includes the ogres and the trolls and the elves and
Okay.
that's just specifically fairies. Um, there's an ogre trading post, and we always invite him because he's really bad at trading. Like you can hand him a rock, and he'll just like give you anything on his table. It's great.
Okay.
It's a lot of fun.
I think I've seen the ogre trading
Yeah. Yeah.
guy
Uh-huh.
doing some stuff.
Big Well,
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
not that big. Every time I go away from him, I think he's like 6'4", and then I get back and I'm like, no, he's 5'9". He just has this really big personality.
Right.
But yeah, Hamish does the ogre trading post, and then we'll have a fairy court that night, and the Unseelie, the winter king and queen of the fae, will step down, and we will coronate our new fairy king for the spring. And then the next day, on April 9th and Saturday, there'll be Ken Crampton, a drummer who runs like drum circles. He's from down in Fredericksburg. He always comes up and does drum circles in the yard, and Sula Hoops will be hooping to all of that. And what else is going on? Probably Tool Shed will play. They play like a saw and a wash tub. And
Ooh, nice.
they're called Tool Shed for a
Yeah.
reason.
Okay.
And actually, I'm looking for a couple more bands. People. Baltimore
Awesome.
Faerie Faire, spelled Faerie. Um, Bedlam Bones is a pirate band that's applied. I haven't hired them before, so I'm like the people I've hired before and I know I want are in, and the people that I haven't, I'm waiting to get a few applications and then choose who will play. But that's a lot of fun. And then let's see, what else is the band doing? What are we doing musically after that? The Royal Rabbit Fairy Market is in June. And then I'm going to apply to both the Maryland and the Pennsylvania Ren Fairs again. One year, a long time ago, we played the New Jersey Ren Fair, but they haven't ever had us back. So I don't know. Mostly, yeah, I like to just go out to the festivals and have a beautiful day playing music.
Sounds like you have a lot of things you're going to be turning the corner on in 2022 as far
Yeah.
as short-term goals.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a moment in your musicianship where you feel that you reached a personal milestone?
Besides having that dancer dance to me. um, yeah, I don't know that I can name actual moments, but I know I've gotten that feeling of I'm really playing this music. You know, like not I'm keeping up with the music. I'm I'm doing a good job at my job, but
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I am playing this music. I love it when that happens. Um, and then yeah, like little things like getting the first year that I applied to the Maryland Renaissance Festival, everyone told me, you know, you have to apply a bunch of years. You won't get in your first year. And I got in, and that was really nice.
Wow.
Yeah. And then Light City, Baltimore, which I missed terribly. I hope it's back in 2022. I think the first year, the I have a dance troupe. My dance troupe is Aubergine, which is both French and Farsi for eggplant, and Brinjal is Hindi for eggplant. And the dance troupe came first, and we all predate the emoji. But anyway, Aubergine I think got the gig, but Aubergine and Brinjal played together
Okay.
up on the main stage at Light City, and that felt really good because that was a big stage with lights and everything. You know, I love it, and that's always a milestone when somebody turns the lights on and you're up on stage and people are dancing in front of you. You know, that always feels really great.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I should like get a light and sound person as part of the band. I never have done that.
Yeah, yeah. It's always nice when if it's a general light and sound person, they
Mm-hmm.
actually pay you a little bit of attention.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
kind of
When
colors
they're
you
good at
want?
their job, yeah. When they're good at their job, that's just wonderful.
Yeah.
That just adds so much to a show. Is we're pretty spectacular looking because we you know we were going to dress in Renaissance clothing and at the Ren Fair. We're going to dress in fairy clothing at the fairy fairs. We're going
Yeah, yeah.
the pirate fairs. Everybody's in black and red and hats and sashes and and we dance with swords.
Nice.
So about half the band are also dancers. So there's usually dancing at our shows.
Okay.
I'll just put down my instrument and dance for a song, and then somebody else, one of the flute players, put down her instrument and dance to a song. And one
Neat.
of the drummers will put down her instrument and dance to a song. So
That's
kinda nice.
awesome. Sounds very talented. Like just to being able to see so many people just swap off instruments and dance and just have a good time on
Yeah.
stage.
Then there's a song that we play actually on the CD that I gave you. The last song on there. The CD's on Bandcamp. It's called "The Dogs of Brinjal," because at practice we would always laugh because the dogs would bark while we're playing. You know, we're practicing and then the dogs bark. We're like, oh, that fit in perfectly. Thanks, Lucy. So he's like, if we ever do a CD, we're gonna have to call it "The Dogs of Brinjal." So we did, and we put the dogs on the last song.
Nice.
And so that it took so many takes. No, we recorded the dogs, and then it's a pretty fun. It's called Aya Zane, and we often end shows with that song, and that's a song where we love to trade instruments during the song. You know, just like we get very silly, and then we pull out the kazoos. Sometimes we bark.
Excellent. When it comes to creating your music and your art, are there subjects that you won't touch or that you shy away from because they're not your wheelhouse or they're controversial or something like that?
Um, well, playing Middle Eastern music as a cis white, almost het American, I have to be careful of uh, stepping on toes that don't belong to me. Generally, I have found that the Middle Eastern community love that we're playing their music. That they can, that's a it's a respectful thing to do. It's a joyful thing to do. It's that, yeah, let's play together.
Yeah.
I haven't run into that from Middle Easterners, but I still need to just be aware of it at all times. Um, and as a dancer, I had to worry about what my lyrics were saying when I did use recorded music, because you could hear some peppy song, but it's about destroying Israel. And you don't know that. Well, don't dance to that song at the show.
Right, right.
You have to know what your lyrics mean. You have to be careful if you really are playing for a Greek crowd, not to be, or goodness gracious, an Armenian crowd, not to be singing in Turkish.
Right.
Right. Like, it might be the same song that they play too, but they don't really want to hear the Turkish. So sometimes there's stuff like that to be aware of. And then, with the fairy festivals, I've gotten in a little bit of trouble. Do you know Shodake? He's a beatboxer who's he has now, I forget what he's doing. He's doing something really fancy. I just got off Facebook, so I can't go look him up there. But he does some collaborating with some people I know. And I told him when I started the Faerie Faire, I want this, I'm white. Baltimore's not. I don't want it to be all white. And that's, I know a lot of white people, and I want to make sure that I hire some black artists. He said, "Oh, you want me to come black up your event?" I was like, that's a bad thing? And he was like, yeah, that's a bad thing. And I was like, I don't mean it in a bad way. I mean it like I want my fairy festival to represent Baltimore. It's called the Baltimore Faerie Festival.
Right.
And we had a long talk, and I told him my dad, like, marched with Martin Luther King. Like, my dad was white, but, like, we can't help that, but we do what we can, we try to use our privilege to help. And I think we came around to seeing things, I think he understood where I was coming from. But when he first heard me say, "Oh, you're a black guy, I want you to come play at my event to be black,"
Right.
He just was like, no. But I think I've done a good job with that sense. And there's always something you can learn. If somebody is insulted by what you say, you got to listen to them. Oh, and a huge thing is the G word. I don't even know if you realize that the word gypsy is a derogatory term for the Romani and the Sinti people.
Yes.
And a lot of white Americans mean just the best thing in the world when they call their music gypsy music, or they call their style of dressing gypsy. But, you just can't really do that. It's not, no, it isn't.
Right.
No, it isn't. You don't know anything about it. And there's plenty of Romani people who are perfectly happy with that word and aren't insulted by it. But because there are some that are, those are the people I'm going to listen to. There's a band that plays a few of the same songs that we do. I'm not going to name the band, but the G word is in their name. And whenever he asks me to hire, hey, you're having a festival, hire me. I'm like, you got to change your name. Right. I'm not putting that on my playbill.
Yeah.
That's not where you're from. That's not who you are.
Yep.
So the Django jazz is often called gypsy jazz.
Yes.
And again, it's meant well, but it's, and I think, was Django Reinhardt at least part Romani?
I'm not entirely sure, but it was at the time that the phrase was coined. I think the cultural period was not so conscious of Romani.
We don't have the Redskins anymore playing football. We don't,
Yeah.
Yeah, we're picking some stuff up slowly but surely. So yeah, that comes up. That comes up in both the music and the dance a lot. There's a really nice beat that the rhythms are very important in Middle Eastern music. Like I don't know because I don't play American music, but I don't think there's a whole lot of names for different rhythms. Like in Middle Eastern music, you've got maksum and malfuf and baladi and saidi, and there's all these different rhythms. Um, and there's one that we call the kashlama. Kashlama is actually a specific dance, but this it's a 9/8 rhythm, and I love it. And there's a few very popular Middle Eastern tunes with that 9/8 rhythm. Um, and whether or not you play the ninth beat, it used to be called the Gypsy Nine or
Ah,
so
okay.
uh, the ninth beat could either be, I mean, it's still there, it's just either silent or it's played. Um,
So the lexicon itself has been evolving with the music.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I think American beats in American like folk music and blues have a smaller vocabulary for a beat. So there's like four on the floor and stuff like
yeah.
that that
Okay.
describes mostly 4/4 beats that are done in blues and folk numbers, and like not a whole lot that's outside of a 4/4 time signature. And
Right.
then you start referring to it as the drummer who popularized that beat in the time
Oh,
signature.
okay. So
Um,
Take Five is in a 5 time signature, isn't it? The jazz song?
it could be. I'm not a super
Yeah.
jazzy
Yeah.
guy personally. I'm
What
trying. I'm trying.
what are your musical loves?
I have always played rock, and progressive music, so I'm big into that stuff, and I've been really getting into jazz over the past year or two. But I am very far behind my counterparts who have been listening to it
Yeah,
for
forever.
yeah, um, yeah. I like folk music and blues and
I asked Christopher if he would come. He's got a gig tonight. But Christopher Beljika that I mentioned before, who does the Django Jazz,
Mhm.
he would be really fun to talk to. Like I said, he just had his 27th birthday, and the man is an old soul. Like he's
Right.
just, I'm just so happy to be. We've taught him to walk on stilts. Now he just offered me a stilt gig tonight. I'm like, okay, he's just he's a real, like he'd be fun.
Yeah, I'd love to
Have
talk
him
to him.
on. Yeah. No.
Um, as a musician, what is your relationship with the term success in music? And do you feel successful as a musician?
I feel successful as a band member. Um, I Success is having enough time and comfort in your life that you get to put a lot of music in it. I know some people are real into the fame thing, but I don't need that. I can be a big fish in a small pond.
Right.
That's half that feel it does feel good when people know who you are. Um, the Every now and then I'll hear somebody who doesn't know who or doesn't know I'm listening or something saying that their favorite band at Ren Fair are me and like two other bands that I look up to,
Hmm.
I was like, yeah. So I guess just, bringing people pleasure and having them tell you that, having people let you know that you are making their life better by bringing them music. That's success. That's really nice. And again, like having a good enough life that you get to play music, um, because you're privileged enough to have the time to do it.
Right. Um, what's the hardest thing about being a musician?
Practicing.
Is it
I don't do it much.
is it
I would
the
be better if I did.
is it the scheduling, the making time for it, or is it the actual act of practicing?
Um, yeah, it's putting it at the like making the time for that. because I have so many interests. Like I look forward to when we go away to Florida for 6 weeks, that I will have much less of my stuff there. I won't. I'm planning on taking that bass ukulele, taking that video from Tobias, and I'm planning on taking my regular little ukulele. Uh, I like to play the songs my mom played. Some, the kid songs,
Oh yeah.
stuff she played for me. Um, just yesterday, I don't know whether this would be on a ukulele or not, because I just think of it as a cappella. But my husband said something about, my girlfriend once told me this nursery rhyme about this lady, and she swallowed something, and then she swallowed something to catch that something. And I was like, are you the old lady who swallowed a fly? You didn't hear about that till you were an adult, But I love those old children's songs. I just, and I kind of like to do a kids show.
Okay.
I really would like to do a kids show with a ukulele. I've started one that's a kind of a variety show. It was during the pandemic, and I thought I should have a 10-foot pole and let the kids pick something, kid, adult, whatever, pick something out, and whatever color, it could be like a different colored stone, or it could be something could be written on it, but they would get something off the menu, and it would be music and dance and poetry and magic tricks, and
Oh
and
wow.
so
Okay.
I had started like but yeah, just practicing, just doing it enough that I get good at it. Instead of today, I sewed, I don't know, 30 or 40 flowers on a shirt. I said to my husband, I hope you're doing something useful today. He's like, oh, yeah, I'll get something useful done. I said, because I'm putting flowers on this shirt. It's not one of the things I need to do before we leave on our trip.
Right.
But sometimes, you just got to sew flowers on a shirt.
Well, the flowers will be on the shirt, and that'll be done.
That's right.
There's always time to practice. Um. So I believe we've both lived through Napster and Kazaa and LimeWire and similar peer-to-peer services, where at one point you went out and bought a record, and then at another point the records were free and the music was able to be downloaded.
Hmm.
And we're now at a point where Spotify gives some money back to artists, albeit a very, very small fraction of what you might have gotten from an album sale in the past. Do you believe at this point in time that songs have monetary value?
Hmm. What a lovely question. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, yes. Of course, yes. But there's there's the inherent value, which should translate to money, and then there's how we live. Um, I know sometimes I get free music because I can.
Mm-hmm.
If I think I know I feel more like if I know the musician, I'm more likely to pay them, or if I can actually get money straight to a musician. I think there's a lot of people who are kind of the way we justify downloading free music is because the corporations take so much of it, and they have so much money, and it's all a big scam,
Yeah.
that if we can get some free music, we should, and then we can just go buy a musician a beer.
Right.
um, but how that works out eventually, I don't know. Uh, Two of my sons are comic book artists, um, and so they're in the visual artist world. And my son Aladdin Collar, he just had this real long. He did a video. I guess it was on YouTube that I saw it. I saw it on Facebook, but I think it was on YouTube about how in the art world, like you remember when Andy Warhol was doing the soup cans, or there
Yep.
was that guy who did. pop art was comic books painted. Like the little dots were a big part of it. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
the print style was now made into giant paintings, and but what he painted, he didn't make up his own art. He painted other people's art.
Hmm.
So like a comic book artist who never ever got credited. And Aladdin was saying, when you see this in a museum, the museum should be able to do the work to say, this is actually from this comic book with this artist.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because I'd never thought of that before, that somebody actually designed that soup can.
Hmm.
And it wasn't Andy Warhol. Um, so the music industry, we play mostly, they're sort of folk songs. They've been around for a long time. Some of them we know, like Farid Thrash wrote Layla, not Eric Clapton's Layla. There's a Middle Eastern Layla. Um, Although Eric Clapton was also inspired by a Persian poem when he wrote Layla.
Okay.
The Because the folk songs have just been around, and like there's Misirlou. Oh, that's a Greek song because a Greek guy recorded it in 1927. The Turks are like, we had it way before that. Misirlou is
Right.
played. There's klezmer Misirlous. There's like so many songs. And then of course there's Dick Dale's Misirlou,
Hmm.
from that, not from Pulp Fiction, but was made popular there. So a lot of the songs get passed around, but when you write your own song and it's yours, and then you don't get paid for it, or even your rendition of an old folk song that's your arrangement and your actual playing of notes. Yeah, that's it. I don't know where that. I don't know the right answer to that because I don't know how to keep. I don't know. There's a good answer. How about that? I hardly ever. I just don't
That's
know.
fair. I think you might be able to answer the next one, which is,
Okay.
do you believe that being a musician is a viable job?
Yes,
Because it
I
seems like you
do.
actually get
I
to
write
be a
W-9s.
musician.
I write W-9s for my music. The No, I asked them for W-9s. I write them. What are the things I write them? I write them 1099s.
Ah,
It's been a while. It's been a pandemic.
yeah.
um yeah, there's people who play music all over the place. Like sometimes you don't think that one of the paying gigs of a musician is to go play an organ in some church they don't belong to, or sing in the choir.
Mhm.
Some choir singers, because they're so good, they get paid by the church to come do that. There's people who play music at a school, at their assembly, and somebody has an assembly. There's people who play music for commercials, studio stuff that they don't ever. That's what pays their bills. One of my sons, that's a comic book artist out in LA. I think a lot of his money actually doesn't come from the comic books. It comes from writing storyboards for ads.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of money out there. Sometimes you just got to find the money stream and jump in and
Right, right.
breathe for a while. But playing gigs, there's also how much stuff do you need? There's like ways to live cheap. So if you want to just play music for a living, you definitely can. I think just about anybody can if that's what they're driven to do. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, if you're looking to play music for a living, let this be the episode that shows you that it is possible.
It is. You come play with my band. We're looking for a violinist. Yeah, play a mizmar. Just come right over, or a canoon.
So, to finance the music, we talked a little bit about stilts. Is
Mhm.
that the main way that the income comes in? Does that finance the music, or is the music kind of self-financed, and the stilts kind of takes care of the rest of life? Or how does the music get
We get
made?
paid to play music for sure. Um, we get paid. I try to, like, some gigs we do for charity. some gigs we do because we just really want to. But mostly we get paid, and my musicians might get paid anywhere from $50 because we really want to do the gig to $150 because yeah, it's a good gig,
Mhm.
each and we the CD hopefully pays for itself when you sell the CDs. Of course, we had this conversation earlier. Nobody buys CDs anymore, except at
Right.
Ren fairs they do. At
Mhm.
Maryland Ren Fair, they're not allowed to tip. Um, some Ren fairs are all about tipping, but we can't accept any tips, so people buy our CDs sort of instead of tipping.
Right.
That's why we need another one. um, but another thing, if you want to make a life as an artist and really be an artist, is buy a house, don't rent, buy a fixer upper, and in those times when you don't have some work, fix up that house. And houses, like, you can get them on auction and stuff, and then when you get it all fixed up and you decide you're going to move, go get another fixer upper and rent the first one out. I'm a landed gentry. I have a few little houses that I rent out, and I try and be the good kind of landlord, not the bad kind of landlord. And I would like to sell the houses to people who need houses, because they should have houses too.
Right.
Um, so a little bit of real estate, especially if you're handy at all, and it's a good thing to be. And a lot of musicians, well, we work with our hands, so you probably can figure out. Now YouTube can teach you how to do just about
Yeah, yeah,
anything,
yeah, definitely.
um, so yeah, I really recommend buying a house unless you just want to stay on the road. And then you have to have, like, maybe your brother or sister will rent the house out for you while you're gone, because it's hard to be a landlord and on the road.
Right.
Just sometimes the heater breaks and you got to do something about it. But yeah, that's if you don't, marry rich,
Right.
or like have or live with your parents in the basement.
Mhm.
It's really good to own. It's cheaper to own a house than it is to rent. A
Yes.
mortgage and taxes and all that is cheaper than rent, because whoever's renting it to you has to be making a little bit of a profit, or they wouldn't be doing it. So
Mhm.
therefore, it's your own. It's a place for you to get a profit. So yeah, the stilts, I make more money stilting just because there are fewer stilt walkers. It's not that there are more stilt walking jobs. It's just there's fewer stilt walkers.
Ah, okay.
So I get more of the jobs. um, yeah, and it's a little bit of a niche thing. It's not very hard, but don't tell them that. Um,
Awesome. So it sounds like you operate in the black, which might be a first for our guests on the podcast. Um,
yeah.
what is your favorite piece of musical equipment or instrumenting that you've owned or used in your time as a musician? Or does that even apply with the
Um.
instruments that?
Well, my favorite instrument is my rick. It's like a tambourine, but it costs $400. It's very heavy. The cymbals are brass. They're not. They don't go chicka chicka chink. They go, chunka chunka chunk. They ring. You can get a lot of sounds. The drum head is extremely tight, and you can thump the drum head, and you can whack the drum. You make there's like a lot of different sounds you can get off the drum head. And again, if you want to hear a rick played really well, look up Karim Nagy, Karimnagi. He's got a lot of stuff on YouTube, and he can just he makes the thing sound like an entire orchestra. It's
Nice.
amazing. It's amazing. One time I remember, and he might have this on YouTube. He had flown to Japan. He flies all over the place. He's Egyptian, and they had, I think it was Japan. They had lost his luggage, so somebody handed him a toy tambourine, and he played it. And I was almost like getting ready to give up because he was so good. But yeah, I really do love my Rick. And then the Christmas before COVID should it should be like a story. The Christmas before COVID. My band always has my band and dance troupe together. We're sister organizations. We always do a winter party, and we like one time we did a Secret Santa thing, and then after that it was Secret Satan, and then it was Secret Santana, and this year I think it's Secret Sultana. Um, and we have various gift exchanges. But one time, a giant box was there, and it was for me, and it was a Fender PA,
Oh wow.
so we can bring our own PA to gigs. And it's really nice. I haven't completely learned it, and I'm trying to get them to learn it because I don't need to run the whole band and set up the PA and dance and and do the stilt walking. That's a conversation we've just recently had. If I'm supposed to stilt walk and have the band at a gig, band you're gonna have to set up the band equipment.
Right.
It can't be me and Joffrey doing that and running off to do stilts because sometimes it's 98 degrees, at these festivals.
Yeah.
And we're gonna die. But I love my Rick and I love my gifted, and that's part of the reason I love it. Fender PA.
Awesome. How much gear is too much? I imagine this question's a little bit different than the other people that we've had on our podcast so far. Most people have giant speaker cabinets like this lining their
Right.
walls.
For me, there's an entire door is covered in swords. And there's one wall that's covered in silk veils because we dance with them. And then there's the musical equipment, which is smaller, but there's my husband plays the oud and the overblad, and my drum is very large, and I've got more than one Rick. My favorite Rick got left at Penzic, and I had to wait an entire year to get it back because Penzic only happens once a year.
Mhm.
Everything goes into storage. And so I had to get another one. Yeah, and then there's how much gear is too much gear? When I can't move it all aside to dance, then it's too much. That's when it's too much gear.
Do you find yourself having, I guess this branches out a little bit more than gear, but they call it gear acquisition syndrome, where you kind of look at the catalogs and whatnot and go, ooh, I would like some more of this.
Only, only for Ricks.
Okay.
I just want more of them, and they're not very big, so I can have more. My drummer Heather Amos is our main. She drummed with the dance troupe when I needed to start the band.
Mhm.
I was like, well, I have a drummer because she used to just come drum for us, and she collects drums, and she doesn't play the Rick, but she's got them, and her walls are just covered. She's a collector person.
Okay.
She collects marbles and sand and kayaks. Luckily, she has a big house and yard.
Yeah.
But her drum collection is amazing. It's amazing.
Cool. Do you have any hobbies or passion projects outside of music that fight for music time?
Yes, I think I've answered that question.
Yes.
Well, this coat that I'm wearing during the pandemic, I had this thing where I just had to start cutting up clothing and sewing them to other pieces of clothing. So this is like 3 different wool coats that I get at the thrift store. And I started making these things I called tatter coats. Well, I started calling them apocalypse coats.
Okay.
And I decided that wasn't a very good name. So I do love to costume. The sewing flowers on a shirt was really about the fairy festivals. And so, yeah, I want to sew, and I want to paint, and I want to hang out with my chickens. And I like chicken dealing. Somebody today came and picked up a rooster that you don't need very many roosters, And in
Right.
Baltimore City, I'm actually not allowed to have any. So once they start crowing,
Ah.
I got to do something about it. But another belly dancer friend of mine recently let me have her silk frizzled Americana. And his mom, who was a pureblood Americana, I don't know. She had to get rid of him because he was crowing, and her neighbor was, and my neighbors are actually cool with it. So as long as Baltimore City doesn't find out that I have these roosters,
Hey, we won't tell anybody.
yeah, as long as it's just you and me in this room. Yeah, my neighbors are all cool with it, and that's really why they have the rules. Is because roosters are loud, and you want to have a rule. so that if there's a problem, the rule is clear.
Right.
But if nobody's complaining, then it's not like they're looking for roosters. But yeah, I'm into the chicken dealing.
Okay.
Got eggs in the incubator, and then I've got my accidental duck because my friend gave me duck eggs to eat, which are delicious. I don't know if you've ever had duck eggs,
I've
but they're
not.
bigger and richer. And
Hmm.
so I was cracking the duck eggs, and the second one had a little fetus in it, and the third one had a little fetus in it, and I was like, the last two are going in the incubator.
Oh, wow.
I'm not, I'm not cracking any more of these eggs, and one of them developed into an adorable duckling, which is very different from a chicken.
I'm jealous. I want some ducks and
Yeah,
chickens.
so you see, and then there's house cleaning.
Yeah.
Like, if only somebody could just do that, and maybe eating, because
Yeah.
eating and house cleaning and sleeping take a lot of time especially if you have a lot of projects. Like, if you have instruments all over the place. Today, one of my friends taught a yoga class at my house in my dance room, which is basically somebody else's living room, except I don't have any furniture in there.
Mhm.
And I have mirrors along the wall so that we can practice dance. And the musicians, once the hurdy-gurdy joined the band, the music room was too small. We had to move into the dance room for that. So the chairs go in and the chairs go out, and yesterday was craft day for the dance troupe, and so the flowers are everywhere, and and the sewing machine has to move out so that we can have the yoga. And I was like, if I wasn't coming down here to you, I was going to get out my dyes because I dye the dance veils. As a dancer, I'm Nina Amaya. It looks like Nina Amaya. .com, and I sell veils there, and I've got a bunch of my projects there. But Big Whimsy is our stilt thing, and the band doesn't actually have their own website. We've got the Facebook page, but then on Big Whimsy you can find, because I used to run the Big Whimsy thing, and Nina Amaya and Aubergine had its own website. Now they're just on my website, and then I've decided the Tipsy Kings, the stilt band, can just be on Big Whimsy too. And the Fairy Festival had its own website. And then there's all those social media pages that you run.
Yeah.
So, like, that stuff takes away from practice time,
Right.
from music time, is making your band successful. But it's one reason that people want to play with me, and one reason that we get paid is because I take the time to do that stuff. So I'm pretty excited about life in general. And yeah, I love it when I love being the place that people come to practice.
Mhm.
Partly is I don't take the time driving.
Yeah.
They come to me, but then I got to clean up, and there's, the teacups are everywhere. And so,
Right.
yeah, a lot of things. I have a lot of passions take away from my music time. Music shares me. I'm in a polyamorous relationship with all my passions.
Nice. Well, speaking of the various websites and whatnot, could you tell us about your most recent projects that you're pushing and where people can find those projects on the internet?
Sure. We do all have Facebook stuff. As a fairy, I wanted someone to start Facebook. Just take the C out.
Yes.
And I said that on Facebook. I'm like, hey, universe, somebody's got to start this. And my friend Robert Walbar did. So now there's a place called Facebook. And I'm trying to move over there. There's only 96 people on it so far. But it's a start. It just started a couple weeks ago. So if you want to find me on Facebook, find me somewhere else and I'll tell you about it. Big Whimsy. Big Whimsy has no E in Whimsy. BigWhimsy.com is our stilt walking. The band is there. The Fairy Festival is there. There's probably links to the dancing there. Might as well have the websites linked to each other.
Yep.
I lost the Fairy Festival website because it used to be BaltimoreFairieFaire.com. But sometimes like things go, like that's the one I didn't run. Somebody ran it for me and she had her own problems and then it was corrupted. And then, so I'm just like, now it's bigwhimsy.com/BFF.html or something. But
Right.
anyway, you can still look it up and find it. But the Big Whimsy site is probably the biggest site, although NinaAmaya.com. Nina Amaya is the way it looks because everybody thinks I'm a Nina until they meet me. NinaAmaya.com has been around for a long time. So I was one of the first belly dancers to have a nice website.
Okay.
So it comes up very easily in searches. But it's very little of what I do now. I'm 58 years old, and I better dancer than I ever was. But people have their own preferences, you know. A Greek guy told me he would never hire a blonde, and I was like, as a
Okay.
belly dancer, and I was like, what about gray-eyed Athena? Do you think she was brunette? What about, wasn't Sparta full of blonde people? I'm not sure I agree with you about not being
Yeah, yeah.
not looking right if you're blonde. But anyway, it's your choice. You hire whoever you want.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where I am. And I would love for people who think they might love the fairies to come to Baltimore Faerie Faire. I'm not looking to be big. I used to be the entertainment director for Maryland Fairy Festival. We had thousands of people there. I've been involved in the Spoutwood Fairy Festival for a long time, which now is going to be at Marshy Point. That'll be on summer solstice. So Marshy Point is in Maryland. Spoutwood was in Pennsylvania in Glen Rock. But that town got tired. It was like 10,000 people. And I don't ever want to run something that big. I help a lot of people run big things. The Enchanted Fairy Festival happens up in York, Pennsylvania. And I will help all the fairy festival organizers love to have me help them because I have a lot of enthusiasm. I have a lot of organization. I have a lot of contacts. But I don't want to be responsible for that many people, you know?
Yeah.
So this year, Baltimore Faerie Faire, I only want 200 or 300 people to be there. That's as big as I want to be. And it's on my birthday, so I get what I want. And it's right here in Baltimore City. And I would love people who think that speaks to them. Like, what? I can come be an orc? Oh, Krampusloft just happened. Do you know
Okay.
about Krampus? He's the Nordic or Germanic nasty furry horned dude that
Yeah.
does the things with the bad children.
It's like the evil Christmas.
Yeah,
A lot
like,
of
he
the.
beats the bad children. And I used to not want to ever do a pirate thing because pirates are bad people.
Mhm.
I don't want to be a bad person. I'm a good person. But you know, it's really fun to be a pretend bad person.
Right.
And the first time somebody was like, you know, $250, come be a pirate for 2 hours as a giant stilt walking pirate. Arg, arg, arg. It was like so much fun. I'm like, okay, I want to do all the pirate events now. I don't want a submachine gun. I don't want to, like shoot anybody. I don't want to kidnap people on the seas. I just want to say arg and, have one peg leg on my stilt.
Right on.
But yeah, if you want this fantasy kind of stuff, come find me. If you want to play with a Middle Eastern band, come find me. Unless you're a jerk, because I don't need that. If you have troubles, we all have troubles. But I do, this isn't a question that you asked, but I want to say it. As a pretty positive person who collaborates a lot and has a lot going on and makes a lot of opportunities for people, I do sometimes attract energy vampires.
Right.
And I think people in the arts, maybe more than other people, have to watch out for that. Because art is made sometimes out of joy, but often because there's a hole, HOLE, and you want to be WHOLE, and you fill that hole, you fill that vacuum with art. You're a little bit broken, and you try to make some beauty because there's some pain. And so often when you're in an alternative community, like the fairies or the musicians, even as a community that's sort of an alternative community, other broken people are attracted to the fact that something good is happening and that they're more accepted than they are in the normal world. And that's great, but you can only carry so much of that. You know, you're drinking and smoking and playing music, and can't we all just live in this, why don't we make a commune where everybody's, all we do is we get up and we play music and we're drinking and we're smoking. A friend of mine had a post like that recently. And I was like, yeah, but you gotta have a certain amount of health.
Yes.
There's gotta be some healthiness.
Yep.
And sometimes I radiate health out and I have some to spare, but you can't fix everybody,
Yeah.
So I just wanted to put that out there. because it's something I deal with.
I agree. Yeah. Maybe how many people are in Brinjal at like one time?
No
You have no idea.
idea. 5 or 6 of us play a show usually, or 7.
Okay.
And then maybe a couple extra dancers.
And you
8
have
or
a
9.
revolving troupe. So like
Yeah, and
out
some
of a
people
lot of
some
people.
people have babies sometimes, and then they're not around for a while, and like different things happen. But at practice, pre-COVID, probably a dozen of us.
So there's like a lot of people involved
Mm-hmm.
with all sorts of places where they're coming from, and
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they come from Pennsylvania and Virginia.
and and life's a journey. So where they're at any given point, and the ups and the downs between every person in that room, it
Yeah,
can
and
be hard to
that's
balance.
we're a wonderful family tribe unit. Something there's a really good feeling there, and it's not some. Sometimes a dancer wants to join my dance troupe, and she may be technically good enough, but she isn't. Her face doesn't dance. And for me, it's more about the performance. It's not about doing it right or wrong.
Hmm.
They say in America, we watch the dance that the dancer is doing. And in Egypt, they watch the dancer dance her dance.
Interesting.
Like it's the human. What is the what is the what is the human doing? And the dancing is what she's doing. Where here it's like you're watching a dance and it needs to be done correctly. Um, or and so sometimes somebody wants to join the dance troupe, and it's just more about there's no specific. So one of my dancers, Christina Ng, she had a kid and she's not dancing with us anymore. She's moved on to the other things, but once an aubergine, always an aubergine. When she came to me at first wanting to join the troupe, she said, "I had a dream. It told me I needed to dance with the fairies. So here I am." I was like, "Okay, you're in. That sounds great." So, yeah.
Well, with that, I am going to spend the rest of the night thinking about the difference between dancing and having or watching the dance and watching the dancer. And I just want to thank you so much for actually taking the time to come in here today and chat with me about all these different things. It's been very enlightening hearing your side of the musician story and all the things that you do, stilting and organizing. And I hope you have a wonderful day.
All right. Thank you very much for having me. I'm going to go home and laugh at my husband for laughing at me. See, I was the first one in the black.
This concludes episode 6 of Thrash Life. If you enjoyed our show today, please make sure to like, subscribe, leave a review, leave a comment. Anything that you can do to show that you were here is appreciated, even if you hated it. If you don't like seeing our faces on YouTube, you can always check out our podcast, available on all audio platforms such as Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. Thrash Life is a production of Medusa Head Media and is recorded in Baltimore, Maryland, United States, at Orion Studios. Except for this bit, which is recorded at home in Glen Burnie. Thanks for listening, and take care.